So the long election campaign is nearing an end for Lok Sabha elections 2024, and today we are joined by Union Finance Minister, Senior BJP Leader Nirmala Sitharaman ji. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us on Network 18. I'll start off with some good news. For the first question, the S&P global ratings, which have just come and revised outlook on India from stable to positive. Do you think this is a good omen for Modi 3.0 if NDAs want to par on June the 4th?
Yes, undoubtedly it's a big good omen, and big good omen for Prime Minister, for the country, for the economy. And the reasons they've put out more than clearly explains why an economy needs a visionary leadership. A leadership which takes care of inclusion, brings everybody who requires that hand-holding and empowerment, and at the same time keeping fiscal prudence, making sure that expenditure goes for asset creation and not for revenue expenditure, which is expenditure or money given for not asset creating expenditure but consumption expenditure, which sometimes can be good, but it cannot be to that scale as you would want. So the consistent emphasis of the Prime Minister that we should spend money in building infrastructure, putting more money for that, and ensuring quality expenditure happens. You've given money and you don't care how it is getting completed. So it has so many different governance message, and these are not my explanations. S&P themselves have said as a justification to why they have changed the grade, and also have shown that in the next 24 months every chance of us being given a better grade.
Ma'am, while the opposition leaders are still trying to figure out what they should do, this is a government which is talking about its third term, talking about the fact that you have a 100-day agenda in place. What would be the topmost priorities of the government, given the fact that the Prime Minister has emphatically said that when the government comes back to power, then we look at becoming the world's third largest economy?
Undoubtedly, the 100-day agenda is more to immediately get going with work that can be delivered within the 100 days or that can be initiated within the 100 days, so that within a year and within a year or two we do many things, so that the first major step towards Viksit Bharat, which is 2047, our deadline is 2047, it need not wait till 2047, we can even achieve it even earlier, but for which the first main step should be that we work towards getting India to the third largest economy status. If within 10 years you saw from a fragile 5, we've come to top 5, and therefore the effort now is to see how best we can reach at the earliest the third largest economy status. So the 100 days work plan is really putting on our skates and moving really towards delivering and building the steps towards Viksit Bharat.
How would you see the markets reacting post June the 4th? Because there's a lot of speculation that it could, will be the scale of the win. And do you think, are you confident about the Prime Minister's slogan of Ab ki baar NDA 400 par? Do you think that aim is very much on track?
About the markets, I like to say two things. Markets go on very many different factors, domestic being very importantly one of them. But in a global situation where there's so much of volatility all around the world, and where big economies which actually make up for the biggest markets for very many emerging economies to export their products, almost signs of recession setting in, and if they're lucky, they are going to come out of it. But never mind, the volatility globally is a very big issue. So if the markets were to look at these factors and then perform, they have the domestic market as a sharp contrast to the uncertainty of what prevails outside. And therefore, certainly Indian stock markets have a lot to celebrate, and they have been showing in the last 6 or 8 months. Equally, markets have their own wisdom in seeing what is going to make an economy sound, stable and predictable in a way, given a minimum level of uncertainties. And also they want government to be stable. They don't want unstable governments, which are the normal products of coalition government, except for once, even in spite of small coalition. I mean, a big coalition, somebody like Atal Bihari Vajpayee was able to keep up the balance and take us forward. But normally uncertainty is high, probability of volatility is very high when there is no single majority government in place. Indian people have been in the last 2 elections giving that single majority for Prime Minister Modi, and as a result, a stable government has been in place, which gives predictable policies, predictable and consistent tax framework. All these matter to the stock markets. So if there is going to be, and there will be, that's my confidence, a good result coming for BJP on the 4th, it indicates stability, people standing by a good majority infused government, and that will mean good message for the stock market, and therefore it can really go up. It will be a solid bull's market then.
Ma'am, you spoke about 2014, you spoke about 2019. The mandate only got bigger in 2019. Now the push for 2024 is even bigger. 400 par is like what the Prime Minister really said. Now your party is mostly, you've kind of reached the pinnacle as far as the north part of the country is concerned. Will South be the story of the 2024 elections for the BJP? And secondly, ma'am, when the Prime Minister decides to go on a meditation spree, for a day, opposition mocks his meditation spree, and in fact the Congress party has even gone up to the Election Commission.
2 things which are very important and you've raised. When discussions happen on 400 par, the general tendency is to say, North you have reached a saturation, will you make it up in the South now? We forget the East. Bengal and Orissa are going to be seeing big changes this time. Bengal, we are very sure that BJP's performance will be remarkably well. And Orissa too, we think we'll be making up in big numbers. So South will do well, and for all the logically a lot of people saying no, you may have to lose a few seats in Rajasthan, a few in Uttar Pradesh and so on. Those few I think are more than enough made up by the successes in Bengal and Orissa. And the South, of course, in all the southern states put together, like the Home Minister repeatedly says, we will be the single big party.
Ma'am, what do you have to say about the controversy that the opposition is creating about the Prime Minister going for, meditation for 24
That's right.
hours?
The second part of your question earlier was that, it's such a negative campaign that the opposition is undertaking. Campaign has been hectic, long drawn, and Prime Minister not just campaign but also addressed the media. The opposition's grouse was the Prime Minister never talks to the media. All across the country, to all regions and also to the national media, Prime Minister has been talking and talking. The pettiness with which they charge the Prime Minister, they say he always requires a screen before him, so he has to answer. Now look, he's talking to so many different media. Do they all provide that, or does he prefer he's having a one-to-one normal shoulders down discussion and conversation? For somebody who's done this, addressed the media, campaigned all over the country, if after the campaign is over and the silence period comes in, he does his own meditation, and that is also silence. He's not going and saying, look, it's all right, MCCB, whatever it is, I'm going and speaking in campaigns or addressing sessions. He's sitting and meditating. It is consistent with the opposition's one position. Their campaign is against everything that the Prime Minister does. They don't have anything constructive to offer to the country, saying, all right, he does this, we are not in approval of that, but we are presenting you this. They've never answered anything to do with what is their alternative for India. Vikasit Bharat, third largest economy, skilling, youth dividend, artificial intelligence, make in India become Atmanirbhar India, export of defense equipments, labor laws, agriculture, doubling the income of farmers, in which many of the farmers have really seen procurements reaching very high numbers and money is going into their accounts directly. So much has been done. I only listed a few. I want to ask of them, what is it that they have done? Even in the states in which they are in governance, they are just struggling to keep up with the promises which they have unthinkingly given to the people.
It's
So, people who are self-appointed liberals are against somebody who wants to keep silence. If he talks, you have an objection. He wants to keep mum, you have an objection. So you're so centric on that one persona. Your campaign begins and ends at that. Shows clearly who actually is attracting conversation. The political narrative is around the Prime Minister, and rightly so, because he is a performing Prime Minister. They're not able to say anything else. Clearly proves that they don't have a story of their own.
Well, it is quite befitting, man, this observation that Prime Minister began his campaign from Kanyakumari on March the 15th, and now in a way, in the end of the campaign is also going to Kanyakumari. Shows the importance maybe also of Tamil Nadu in the entire
one. And second, Ramakrishna Math, that association of that rock edifice to Ma Kali. It is believed in Tamil Nadu that goddess Kanyakumari, after whom Kanyakumari city is named, the district is named. And there's a beautiful shore temple of goddess Kanyakumari. It is believed that she did tapas on that rock, and there is her holy feet, impression of her holy feet in that rock. And the way in which rock memorial was built with the help of, in fact, RSS, Eknath Ranade ji did so much at that time when CM Bhaktavatsalam of the Congress was the Chief Minister. He'd spoken with Shastri ji, Lal Bahadur Shastri ji, who wasn't yet Prime Minister. And to get it done, it was he who did so much work from the RSS. After all, it was a sacred piece of rock associated with goddess Kanyakumari. And then Vivekananda sits there and does tapas before he goes away for Chicago. It has so much importance. And finally, when that memorial was built, it is today one of the most visited place and has such a sanctity. It's only, and because you know Honorable Prime Minister's association with Ramakrishna Math, association and the respect he holds Swami Vivekananda. And therefore it is appropriate for him to go after this hectic campaign, to be with himself and meditate in a place which has so much significance for him and for the entire country. Why do you want to grudge that? But sorry if I'm going in a tangent. None of the Congress leaders ever take pride in associating themselves with places of historic, cultural or religious significance for India in India. They'd rather go for a vacation in Thailand or rather go somewhere undisclosed. I'd rather prefer them going and doing such,
Vipassana.
And take the energy from these places because they are so essentially Indian.
You were in Punjab a couple of days back, and also in Punjab is Mr. Arvind Kejriwal doing a campaign there. I want to ask you about Mr. Kejriwal. He is mentioning that if the opposition alliance wins on June 4th, he will not return to jail. And he's also saying that this is Modi government which brought in such strict provisions in PMLA that he is not, the courts are not able to give bail to him. What are your thoughts on?
First of all, in all his narration, thinking that his politicizing this whole legal process is going to benefit him is very short-sighted, one. And second, I think it is a complete insult to the judiciary, which, to be fair to him, gave him the opportunity to come out on bail, and on the question of level playing field, you go and campaign if you want, but was clear enough to say you come back on 2nd June. Campaign ends on 30th evening.
Yes.
Today evening. Campaign is done today. The court could have said come back this evening, but they still said all right, you come back on 2nd after the polling. Now, repeatedly saying and appealing to the people that if you press the button in favor of Jadu, I will stay out of the jail, I will not need to go to the jail. What does that mean? Is he trying to say that the courts are doing politics? That courts are going on the basis of votes which are coming? Is he trying to influence the people by saying there's just nothing about judiciary, it's all political? It's such a gross insult to the courts, and I honestly think the courts should take cognizance of this, one. And second, he is underestimating the people of India. Exactly the kind of thing which Mrs. Gandhi, Indira Gandhi did when Allahabad High Court went against her. You know, judiciary, we need committed judiciary. These are not people who can give justice and everything else. You know what happened to that. So, for a chief minister who came into power in the name of eradicating corruption, today to petty bargain with the people or with the courts, saying, look, forget all this, I want my freedom, I want my political liberties, but I'm not answerable for questions of serious nature being asked of him. And eventually, on the point that if PMLA, you know, such regulations have been tightened and therefore he is not able to get bail, wasn't he the one who said, we sakt se sakt kanun hona chahiye to punish people? He said he had a sack full of evidence against Mrs. Sheila Dikshit, a much respected Delhi chief minister. Where are those evidences? And didn't he use this expression, saying, sabko sab jail bhijwaunga? सबको सब जेल भिजवाने के लिए आपके पास जो कानून था तब, उससे सख्त हो गया है क्या? तब भी आप भी बात कर रहे थे जी जेल ही जाना है. You are there now. Instead of introspecting on what had happened in such a way that even the courts today are not able to give you bail, for him to go on building this false narrative just clearly tells me that he either doesn't believe in the intelligence of the people or he believes in manipulating them, both of which are absolutely condemnable. You can't think that you can manipulate people always by giving your narrative. And you certainly cannot underestimate people because they make their choices. And to play up like this just shows how ruthless, dirty politics he plays.
You know, the one thing that binds Arvind Kejriwal, the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress together is their love for freebies. Now you come in from Karnataka, we've seen the state of affairs in Karnataka. Now the Congress and their parties, they want to actually promise 1 lakh rupees to women in a year. Do you think these kind of promises are fulfillable?
First of all, even as they are saying it, they are not putting forth to you as to where that money is going to come from. Even if they don't say it, they are not even saying to how many such women are they going to give this 1 lakh. The point is, unless you tell the whole story, people of India are not going to understand what implication it will have on your budget. And this is just a baseless kind of offer, a tempting kind of a, put a bait out so that people will fall for it, because common people are not going to spend time thinking, does he have the money for it? He said it and said it in public, so we need to believe will be the route in which sometimes women fall for it or people fall for it. Because they think people in public life are honorable people. I will not blame the common citizen of India, but if you're not bothered about keeping your honor up and you give a promise which you can't fulfill, just shows how shameless and thinking that they can game the system and win.
Because the opposition also, to counter that, says even the Modi government is giving free rations till 2029 to nearly 80 crore people in the country. The opposition also says, is that not a freebie?
It's certainly not a freebie. We are accounting for it in the budget. We are stating this is the number of people who will get it, this is the cost of it, and we do not want the state governments to bear any 1 paisa for it. We are not burdening the state governments with a scheme which Prime Minister strongly believes in, because he doesn't want the poor to suffer without food grains being available to them. But that promise, he is not shifting the blame onto the states or responsibility onto the states. He is not even asking them to lift it from FCI Godon, giving truck charges over fuel to the trucks or driver's salary. Entire expenditure is borne by us. Now, if that is the way you do, with budget being clearly allocation made in the budget, and with that allocation you are able to run it, go to the assembly, show it, like we go to the parliament and show it. No, but what they do is give the promise, start sort of implementing it, and realize they don't have the money for it, and then keep blaming Prime Minister Modi, saying, you're not giving me money, I'm not able to implement it. Did you discuss with us and say, no, I'm going to implement this? You got the vote, you implement it, you perform. That's the difference between what Prime Minister Modi, in the name of the food grain, is giving and fully budgeting for it.
Yes.
You've spoken about this very effective scheme in the government. Now we're talking about 10 years of Modi government, and you've been as a minister in some capacity or the other as well. Now after 10 years, when everybody will be searching for answers of how to cut anti-incumbency, why do you think Prime Minister Narendra Modi has pro-incumbency looking at him?
I think, see, the current generation, say 3 generations which are living approximately, have only seen in India, the third generation, the youngest of the generations, may have not seen that India when people had to wait in queues to get even your basic necessity. When promises were made about poor will get houses, poor will get electricity, were not fulfilled. So the senior most generation and the one next to it has seen that India where promises were made, nothing was delivered. Similarly, they have seen an India where one industry, one corner of the country would come in and everybody will aspire to go there and do some business around it or work for that company. Second. Third, they've also seen an India where, in spite of that immense potential, our children were only going outside to get their jobs or probably even not acquiring that kind of degree. What the current generation, which had not seen that India, is seeing is, as much as the opportunities as available outside, they are able to get here. Yes, the temptation of wanting a foreign degree is there, they go, but they come back, become a startup here, and the versatility with which the innovations can be made. Youngsters are seeing that that can be commercially scaled up even within India. Your 3D today, printing technology, has resulted in such quick infrastructure building. And similarly, your agriculture is getting fascinatingly commercial because they are able to get millets to our tables because of semi-processing and so on. So the younger generation is able to see that the seniors in their family had to wait for basic necessities, which is not the case today. They are also seeing that in some areas like digital public infrastructure, in innovations, in very many things, artificial intelligence, we are leading the way globally. So opportunities lie here. They are able to see the sharp contrast that India has achieved in the last 10 years. That is why no anti-incumbency, on the contrary, pro-incumbency.
Last question, ma'am. June 4 is very near us. So opposition is already talking about EVMs. Opposition is already talking about turnout levels by raising fingers at EC. Do you think excuses are getting ready for June 4th?
I think I would be concerned and worried about it. It is just not excuse. Look at the way in which so many different forces are all coming together and also probably receiving implicit support from the Congress party, from the communists, to delegitimize this election process and results of this election. They want to deny Prime Minister Modi, at least from their end, they think they are denying victory. People of India have chosen somebody. People of India have chosen which party has to come to power. Now, because somebody is funding you from outside, NGOs come together, the Communist Party comes together, all Congress parties, sympathizers come together to say, oh no, this victory is not legitimate, it is not excuse. Now they are even trying to discredit India's electoral process, which is a serious offense. If they won in Karnataka or in Himachal Pradesh, they didn't have an issue with it. They don't like Prime Minister Modi since his days of Chief Minister Gujarat, and now they've crossed all decency, levels of decencies, all levels of propriety. They are trying to project, and they would go to any extent, from the kind of statements which are coming, I'm seeing, they would go to any extent to delegitimize this entire process. Who is therefore undermining our institutions? You don't believe in the same electoral process which brought government in Himachal Pradesh of Congress, but now you don't. This hypocrisy is just not remaining at comments, it is going into certain disruptive activities, which is very worrying. Being a responsible opposition party, which is what I thought of Congress, but now I think they've become a handmaid to the disruptionist forces of this country. So when we started speaking that they have now aligned themselves with Tukde gang, it is now repeatedly getting proved that they are no longer that party which claimed that together with so many different other groups and parties, they won the freedom for India through the freedom movement. No, it is no longer that movement which Congress was. It is now that party which is avaricious, thirsty, and which is full of hate for the Prime Minister. So they are going any length to want to claim that this victory is not legitimate. The people of India will squarely punish them. You will see that their results are not going to be in such numbers that they can take pride from. On the contrary, they are going on the wrong route.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for
Yes.
joining us and answering all our questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for giving me a chance to talk to your viewers.